So today we're going to be working on page 6 in our packet, and that is looking at how education is going to bring people to the city of Timbuktu. So I've got 3 sources here, and I'm going to read about each of those sources. First thing I want to make note is whether it's a secondary source or a primary source. So a secondary source means that it was created after the time period being studied. So let me write that down. I'm going to write that right along the side here on my packet. Okay. So a secondary source is something that's created after the time period being studied. So if I come back over, I have an excerpt or chunk from a New Zealand article called Sankore Mosque and University, Oldest University in Sub-Saharan Africa. I can see that my author of that is called Black Past, but that this is a New Zealand article. So my next step is I need to look at my source here. So Sankore Mosque and University is one of the oldest universities in Sub-Saharan Africa. All of the students had to study philosophy, Islamic law, the Quran, language studies, and advanced grammar. They could also choose to learn history, algebra, physics, medicine, chemistry, and arithmetic and astronomy. So I'm going to take some notes on this before I jump in too far, because I want to remind myself that a mosque is an Islamic house of worship. I'm going to remind myself that the Quran is the Islamic holy book. Holy book. And arithmetic, we're just going to call this one math. So my task in this last column is that I need to kind of summarize that in my own words. But I'm answering the question of what does this source say about education in Timbuktu? I'm writing a summary. So my example summary was that there is a university in Timbuktu where students learned about Islam, science, language, and math. So I took my important facts from here and I summarized them in my own words over here. Okay, I'm ready to jump down to source number 2. So my second source for education is again a secondary source. This one's from a book. It's called Everything You Need to Ace World History. And my author here is Michael Lindbald. So here's my source. Mansa Musa invited scholars to teach religion, law, math, and medicine, and made Mali a great center for knowledge and culture. He built mosques and libraries to make the city of Timbuktu not only a wealthy trading city, but also a center for learning and culture. So again, I want to summarize that, getting my most important information. And I've got a little sentence starter here that can help you do that. So my sentence starter is, Mansa Musa brought scholars to Timbuktu, where they? So I'm going to use this reading to finish that sentence. Okay. And And jumping down to our third source here about education. And this one is a primary source. So this is different than my other two. So again, I'm going to spin my paper over, writing in the margins, and I'm going to say that a primary source is something created during the time being studied. So my big difference here is that a secondary source is after, a primary source is during. Okay, I'm going to flip it back. And we've got our primary source. This is from a man named Leo Africanus. There are, in Timbuktu, numerous judges, teachers, and priests, all properly appointed by the king. He greatly honors learning. Many handwritten books imported from Barbary are also sold. There is more profit made from this commerce than any other merchandise. So commerce, we're going to say another word for that is trade. Okay. So again, I want to summarize that source. And my sentence starter here isn't super fancy, but it is just saying Timbuktu had. What did Timbuktu have in it that helped support education? That helped support education. What did Timbuktu have? Okay. So now that I've got those 3 boxes done, my 3 summaries done, I'm ready to choose which one I would like to use in my essay. And whichever one you choose, I want you to put a little star next to its title. So for sake of walking us through this, I'm going to choose source E2, but you can choose whichever source you would like. Okay. Then I'm going to jump down here to my colorful boxes. So starting us out, according to, I'm going to put my author's name. So I'm going to go back and look at who is the author of that source. And I'm going to put my author's name. And then it says in, and I want to put the title of the source. So now that I've got that, this is really important. I want to put a comma after the title and a quotation mark because I'm going to quote directly from the text. I am finding my evidence. So find a sentence from the text that proves that people from around Africa, Europe, and Asia came to the city. So my sentence that I've chosen is from source number 2. That's because that's what I'm talking about here. And instead of starting with he, I'm going to start with Mansa Musa and put it in these little brackets because while it's not part of the quote, that's what it's talking about. And then I'm going to say Mansa Musa built mosques and libraries to make the city of Timbuktu a center for learning and culture. I'm going to end that with quotation marks. Put my source number in parentheses. So just, it says right here, E2. Let me go E2. And then the period goes on the outside. Okay. And now we've got our first analysis sentence. And the good news is you have pretty much already written this. So if I'm choosing source E2, I want to go back up and look at what I had written in my summary box for E2. And I can probably just take this sentence and plug it in with this sentence frame. Education in Timbuktu supports that it was a site of encounter because Mansa Musa brought scholars there where they, and then finish that sentence. So I can pretty much take, I might need to change a few words, but I can pretty much take what I wrote right here and put it into this sentence right here. Okay. And my last step for my analysis for page 6 is that I need to explain why it matters. How is this going to make it that people wanted to come to Timbuktu? So my sentence is going to start, education helped different cultures come together and spread when, and as we were doing this in class today, we didn't really love the when. So we crossed that out and changed it to because. That might help. So how is all of this stuff that we've learned about Timbuktu, that there are universities, that there are libraries, that there are scholars, there are people studying, there are all these books, how is that going to make people want to come to the city of Timbuktu? And that's what you're putting in this sentence right here. How is that going to make people want to come into the city of Timbuktu? Once you have that sentence done, you are all finished with page 6, and you have explained how education helped Timbuktu become a site of encounter. Whoop, whoop. All right, I will see you on the next page.